Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So hello everyone, and welcome to Dharma Bum Basics. My name is Travis. I facilitate this class. So the general structure that we have for the basics discussion is I'll probably talk a little bit, and then we'll do a brief guided meditation. Then I'll talk a little bit more. Tonight's topic is the Four Noble Truths and the Five Aggregates. So before we get started with the meditation, I just wanted to mention that if anyone was wanting to ask questions later during the Q&A session, you do need to have a YouTube account. It's free to sign up and stuff, but you do need a YouTube account in order to comment in the live chat. I just wanted to let you know in case you were planning on asking questions. I think that's it. So we'll go right into the meditation. We'll be doing kind of a working the breath through the body meditation. A few things before we get started. I'll be saying some things like breathing in through the ears and the eyes, or breathing down the spine. This isn't something that I'm suggesting we literally do. Please don't actually do that. But it's a perceptual exercise in order to work the sensation of breath, which is very much a relaxing, tension-releasing sensation. And to be able to take that sensation and work it through the body to relax parts of the body that we might not be sure how to consciously relax, like maybe the center of the head or the guts. So it's easy enough to kind of soften the forehead and relax the shoulders, but it's a little more challenging when there's not necessarily muscles directly connected to that we're aware of. So we'll be working the breath through the body, relaxing the body, and just kind of taking time to notice the relationship between the sensation and the tension in the body and our mind state. Because the body sensations of the body tends to feed the mind state. So with that, we'll get started. I like to kind of bring my shoulders up and back and relax down into a sturdy posture. Tongue pressed up against the roof of the mouth, gently against the back of the teeth to avoid the buildup of saliva, which can be distracting. And then just a string kind of pulling the top of the head up to have a solid posture all the way down through. If you're sitting in a chair, feet flat on the ground is helpful. If you're sitting on a cushion, that means you have a cushion at home, and I'm assuming you know how to sit. So yeah, we'll get started. Closing the eyes and taking 3 deep breaths slowly. Noticing if deep breathing feels good. And if it does, you can keep on breathing in this way. If it doesn't, you can switch it up. Try maybe even deeper still or more shallow, heavier or lighter. Just noticing what feels best for the body in this moment. Or you can pose the question in the mind. What kind of breathing would feel the most refreshing, energizing, or relaxing in this moment? And just watch how the breath responds. When you found a rhythm and texture of breath that does feel good in this moment, the next step is to relax into that breathing. Breathing in, relaxing the body. Breathing out, settling into the moment. Recognize that the mind has wandered. Release the distraction or hold on the distraction. Relax any tension that came along with it, softening the forehead and the shoulders. And return to breath. Take a minute to question what perception you hold of breath and awareness. Do you perceive breath and awareness as two separate things? What would happen if you held the perception that breath and awareness are the same thing, one thing? Notice if that perception changes the experience of the meditation. Without breath, awareness would pass away. And without awareness, you wouldn't notice the breath. So they're one thing, not two things. And the next step is to take this breath awareness and to work it through the body. Starting at the crown of the head, noticing sensation there as you breathe in and out. And noticing if there's any tension in that part of the body. And see if you can consciously relax it all the way through the in-breath and keep it relaxed all the way through the out-breath. Gradually scanning down the body. And anywhere that you find tension, you can stay there for a few breaths and relax it. Softening the forehead and the eyes. Unclenching the jaw and dropping the shoulders. Softening the chest and the stomach. Relaxing any unnecessary tension in the back, all the way through the in-breath, all the way through the out-breath. Softening the hips, relaxing the legs and the knees. Flowing down into the feet, softening the feet. And when you reach the base of the feet, at your own pace, you can gently scan back up the body, working the breath back up through the body, relaxing any tension you missed the first time around. And when you reach the crown of the head again, you can sweep back down through the body. And after you've swept through the body a few times, you can pick any one spot where you found it the easiest to remain focused, calm, where you really had a sense of the breath being nourishing. And you can make that your focal point, the center of your awareness. And you can allow the periphery of your awareness to expand out from that point to fill the entire body. Just like a candle in a dark room. The awareness is focused at one point, the light is focused at one point, but it radiates out to fill its surroundings. So your awareness radiates out from this point to fill the body. So you're aware of the entire body as you breathe in, and you're relaxing the body as you breathe out. Again, noticing what perception you hold of breath, body, and awareness. Do you perceive them as three separate things? What would happen if you held the perception that breath, body, and awareness were all one thing, one fluid activity? Does it change the experience of this moment? while maintaining this embodied awareness. You can slowly begin to open the eyes and stretch if necessary, taking the next few moments in silence, never in a rush to leave the meditation. Now, this is normally the part of the class where I would ask if anyone would like to share how that experience of meditation was for them. So we can still do that in the live chat if you would like, if anyone would like to share how their meditation was for them. Whether you found it easy or difficult, beneficial or confusing, whatever you're sitting with in this moment. So I'd like to talk just a little bit about kind of the purpose of this style of meditation, or the reasoning behind this method of working the breath through the body and learning to relax parts of the body. So when we have an unpleasant distraction arise in the mind, it didn't just come out of nowhere. And this has to do with the Buddha's teachings on the aggregates, the 5 aggregates: form, sensation, perception, fabrication, and consciousness. So the 2 that I'll focus on are mainly sensation and perception. So when we have this unpleasant distraction that arises in the mind, it doesn't just arise out of nothing. It came from conditions. Every effect has a cause. So when we have these unpleasant things arise, they actually start in the body. So when we have an unpleasant thought in the mind, it starts in the body. So to get out of the head, we get into the body. So we'll have a pattern of tension or a pattern of discomfort somewhere in the body that starts to arise while we're meditating or throughout our day. And this tension in the body is kind of the foothold or the springboard through which distractions arise in the mind, thoughts arise in the mind. One of the common examples I share is, for me, different emotions have different patterns of tension in the body. And with some practice, you can begin to recognize that the pattern of tension comes a little bit before the emotion arises. There's some buildup physically. So for me, anger kind of starts as a little bit of tension in the shoulders. It works its way down the arms. and then it clenches up a fist. Now that's the pattern of tension for anger, for me. But the anger doesn't actually arise until the fist clenches. An exercise that I share sometimes that I did with this was when I noticed this pattern of tension, I decided to see if working backwards from it would help reduce my road rage, because I have a bit of road rage. It's a lot better than it used to be, but it's still there. So I noticed as I was driving, definitely still pay attention to your surroundings. Don't just go into meditation while you're driving. But I just kept a little bit, maybe 10% of my awareness on if my shoulders were tensing up. And it was about a 20-minute drive. And even though my shoulders were bobbing the entire time, I didn't get angry because the pattern of tension didn't run its course to make that clenched fist, which is the signal for my mind to give rise to anger, for anger to arise. So this style of meditation where we're working our awareness through the body allows us to become more familiar with our patterns of tension, our own unique patterns of tension. Anger for me starts in the shoulders, makes a fist. For someone else, maybe it starts in the feet or the stomach or wherever. So it's about learning our own patterns of tension and then being able to identify what patterns of tension correspond to what emotional states. And in this way, meditation can become a skill. It's something that we're using to learn more about ourselves, more about our mind, and more about this mind-body relationship. So when we're going through, we're scanning the body, we're relaxing tension, part of what that's doing is cutting down on how many distractions are actually going to arise. Because if the body has less tension, the mind will be less distracted. Because we're actually making this moment a pleasant place to stay by making the experience of the body a pleasant experience in this moment. One of reduced tension. Less tension, less anxiety. So that's kind of the general purpose of this style of meditation, is to begin to notice these patterns of tension. And some of these deeper patterns of tension, like how I mentioned, without practice, we can't consciously relax the center of the head. But with practice, imagining the breath flowing through it, we can consciously relax it. It's just we kind of have to inform it through this image work that we want it to relax, and it can relax. So just to summarize that through these aggregates, the aggregates start with form. Because we have a physical body, we have senses. And so from those senses, we have these sensations, these physical feelings. So say we hear something, form is the ear. So we hear something, sound makes contact with the ear. Before we have an opinion about it, it creates sensation in the body. That sensation in the body builds to a certain extent, and then perception arises. This is a pleasant sensation, this is an unpleasant sensation. And then from that pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, that perception, that label that we put on this sensation, then fabrication arises, which is our story of why we like or don't like it. And then you have the last aggregate, which is consciousness, which is that which is aware of this process. And it's really when you get into fabrication, when you get into those storylines of why you like this, why you don't like that, how you're justified in liking this and not liking that. That's the really sticky stuff, the stuff we get really caught up in. So with this practice where we can check in with the body and relax into the body, we're cutting a lot of that Velcro for the mind from arising in the first place. Many perceptions and storylines will still arise, but not as many if we're aware of tension and relaxing it. So I will take questions at the end. I have the chat on my phone, so I'll look near the end of the class. So with that out of the way, I'd like to move on to talking about the Four Noble Truths. I probably should, because that's what I titled the video. So the Four Noble Truths are the most basic expression of the Buddha's teachings. And many of you have likely heard them before. But what some of you may not know is that there's actually duties associated with each of these four truths. They're active truths. They're not just something that someone said a couple thousand years ago. They're something that's observable in our present moment. The term noble is used because there's something that won't change. There's something that's applicable in any decade, and that applied to any person regardless of social standing or anything else. So these Four Noble Truths are, first is the noble truth of dukkha, suffering. I don't particularly like suffering as a translation. There's many translations with Pali words. I prefer unsatisfactoriness or dissatisfaction. And it's not just those big life-shattering suffering. Dukkha can be just that little lingering feeling in the back of the head that something's just not quite right or something's missing. Then the second noble truth is the cause of dukkha, cause of stress, dissatisfaction, suffering. And that is craving and aversion. Wanting things to be a certain way, wanting things to not be a certain way. Then the third noble truth is the end of suffering is possible. The end of stress is possible. And this is the good news, right? And then the fourth noble truth, because they're in reverse cause and effect. So first noble truth is suffering. Second noble truth is the cause of suffering. Third noble truth is the end of suffering. Fourth noble truth is the cause to the end of suffering. And the cause to the end of suffering is the Eightfold Path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. I'll probably go into those next week. But these duties that are associated with the Four Noble Truths, I think, are really important to touch on because they give us something to work with in our day-to-day. As I mentioned in my post earlier of gaining strength from the basics, from that foundation. When it feels like our lives are up in the air, it's good to have this ground to stand on, this to work with. So the duty with regards to dukkha, with regards to stress, is that it is to be comprehended. So when suffering or stress arises, the method of the practitioner isn't to turn away from it or try to shy away from it or hide from it. It's to actually look at this stress, the suffering, and see it for what it is. If it's within our current capacity to look at it. Some things are painful and will need to be put on the back burner for a little bit. But a lot of suffering can be kind of worked with in this moment. So suffering is to be comprehended and its cause is to be abandoned. So the second noble truth, the cause of suffering is to be abandoned. Most of the way most people search for happiness is actually the opposite. And it's that they try to abandon the suffering, but they're all too happy to maintain the causes. And the causes of suffering are those cravings, wanting things to be a certain way, fantasizing about things being different than they are, as opposed to accepting the situation as it is in this moment and relaxing into it. So I love that contrast when you have suffering, you should look into the suffering. You should begin to understand it, to see what's causing the suffering. When you've identified the cause, you can abandon it. It's really pragmatic. It's really straightforward, and I enjoy that. And then the end of suffering is to be realized or noticed. When you're doing this practice and you notice these little moments where your stress subsides, where you have a little bit of peace, that's to really be noticed and to be appreciated, not just glossed over. Oftentimes we can think like, oh, that wasn't anything special. It was there for a second, it's no big deal. But it really is something to be celebrated, something to be noticed when we're able to subside, even momentarily, our suffering and our stress. And then the path, the fourth noble truth, is to be developed. So with that, I'll open to questions, if anyone has any. Let's see. So does anyone have any questions? You can post them in the chat. It doesn't work if you just talk at the computer, but if you post them in the live chat. So then we will end with a few minutes of silent meditation, and then a transfer of merit. next week I'll leave a little more time for typing. If comfortable, please join palms. May any merit gained from this meditation and discussion be dedicated to all those suffering at this time. May all beings in all directions, without limit or end, be healthy, joyful, and at ease. May we all be healthy, joyful, and at ease. Metta karuna mudita pekha sahanga teya cetasa chaturi sambharatva viharati sammamudarupa vena sammadhammarupa vena sabha sangharupa vena sote hantu nirantaram. So thanks for coming, everyone. I did bring some handouts. They're in the description box below. Some links to a couple handouts. I think that's it. I'll see you all again.